Newport, Rhode Island. The town is quiet, cloaked in winter's icy embrace. On the night of December 31, 1987, the streets were silent, save for the faint crackle of distant fireworks. Crowds were few, the snow untouched, the air heavy with anticipation for a new year. At the heart of the town stood the Newport Tower, an ancient circular stone structure whose origins had puzzled historians for centuries. The locals whispered of strange happenings, voices carried by the wind, lights flickering in its windows when no one was there, shadows that moved independently of the trees. Some dismissed these tales as superstition, but for others, the tower had always carried an aura of unease, a quiet menace waiting to stir. That New Year's Eve, 5 friends decided to celebrate at the tower, drawn by its mystery and the thrill of the unknown. They arrived under the pale light of the moon, their laughter echoing off the cold stone walls. Sparkling wine, warm coats, and bundled scarves gave the night a veneer of safety, but beneath it, a sense of dread had already taken root, unnoticed yet tangible, as if the tower itself had been waiting for them. None of them could imagine that the night would descend into a nightmare that would haunt the town for decades to come. The Newport Tower was more than just a relic. It was a puzzle. Built of weathered stones, the tower stood approximately 28 feet tall, its circular walls enclosing a hollow interior whose purpose was unknown. Some historians claimed it was a colonial-era windmill. Others believed it to be a Norse monument, erected long before European settlers arrived. Locals had stories too, strange lights seen at midnight, footsteps echoing in empty corridors, and the feeling of being watched even when no one was near. It was the kind of place that made your skin crawl when the wind howled through its gaps, carrying sounds from another time. The tower's reputation as a site of mystery only added to its allure for thrill seekers, and that New Year's Eve, it was about to claim a new chapter in its haunted legacy. The 5 friends, Michael, Jenna, Kyle, Laura, and Sam, had grown up hearing the stories, and part of them wanted to see the tower for themselves. They joked about ghosts and spirits, teasing one another as they set up near the entrance. The snow crunched beneath their boots, and the crisp night air filled their lungs. For a while, laughter rang out, mingling with the distant booms of fireworks across the city. Yet, beneath the mirth, an invisible tension began to weave itself around them, almost imperceptible but undeniable, like a shadow at the edge of vision. Something in the tower was awake, watching, waiting. By 11 p.m., the friends had settled near the tower's entrance. They unpacked a small bag of snacks and a bottle of sparkling wine, their breath fogging in the frigid air. Michael, the self-proclaimed skeptic, teased the group about ghosts, waving his hands as if to shoo away invisible spirits. Jenna rolled her eyes, laughing nervously, while Kyle and Laura whispered about the strange cold that seemed to cling to the tower itself. Sam, quiet and observant, stared up at the stones, his eyes tracing every crack and weathered mark, as if expecting something to move. Minutes ticked by, and the air grew heavier. The laughter faded. A low, almost imperceptible hum seemed to echo from the tower's walls, a vibration that made the snow underfoot tremble. The friends exchanged uneasy glances. "It's probably just the wind," Michael said, though his voice carried a hint of doubt. The tower seemed to breathe around them, as if it were alive, its hollow interior waiting for the moment it could claim them. As the clock approached midnight, the first strange signs appeared. Michael noticed footprints leading away from the tower, scattered in the snow. They were irregular, incomplete, as if whoever or whatever made them had vanished mid-step. "Weird," he murmured, more to himself than anyone else. Jenna crouched to examine them, frowning. The snow around the footprints was undisturbed, no drag marks, nothing to suggest a human presence. It was as if someone had simply been lifted from the earth. The friends felt a shiver that had nothing to do with the cold. A faint whispering seemed to drift from the tower, carried by the wind, almost forming words they couldn't quite understand. The laughter of earlier had vanished, replaced by a creeping silence that pressed against their eardrums. Kyle, always the skeptic after Michael, began to feel an inexplicable fear. The snow around them seemed unnaturally still, as though the world itself were holding its breath. Laura shivered, hugging herself. "Do you hear that?" she whispered. Sam nodded, his eyes wide, staring at the dark tower. The structure loomed over them, massive and immovable, yet almost alive in its presence. The friends had come seeking adventure, curiosity, and thrill, but the tower had been waiting, patient, and it had begun to reach for them. The countdown to midnight began. 10, 9, 8. The friends huddled closer together, laughing nervously, trying to shake the unease that had settled in their bones. But as the final seconds approached, the impossible happened. Michael, the skeptic, simply vanished. One moment he was holding his glass of sparkling wine, and the next, the cold air where he had stood was empty. Jenna screamed, scanning the snow-covered ground for any sign, but there was nothing. No footprints, no struggle, nothing. It was as if the earth had swallowed him whole. Panic surged through the remaining four. Kyle called his name. Laura's voice trembled as she shouted, and Sam's hands shook violently as he scanned the tower's shadowed entrance. Then, in quick succession, Jenna disappeared, followed by Kyle. Within moments, only Sam and Laura remained, clinging to each other, terror etched on their faces. The laughter of fireworks had faded into silence, the cold wind now carrying an almost sentient whispering from the tower's hollow interior. It was alive. It had taken them, and it had not finished. By dawn, a frantic search began. Police, volunteers, and townspeople scoured the area, but no traces of the missing friends were found. Footprints that had been visible the night before had vanished, leaving nothing behind. The only sounds were the wind whistling through the tower's cracks, carrying faint, almost human cries that no one could place. Local legends began to resurface, Stories of the tower's curse, of ancient spirits claiming the curious, of a darkness that could reach through time and space to snatch those who trespassed. Investigators puzzled over the case, finding no evidence of foul play, no indication that the friends had left voluntarily, and no natural explanation for their disappearance. Cameras, notes, and personal belongings remained scattered near the tower, untouched by snow or wind. It was as if the tower itself had absorbed their very existence. The town's whispers grew louder. The Newport Tower was not merely old stone, it was a sentinel, patient and eternal, claiming the unwary on nights like New Year's Eve.
As the days turned into weeks, the story of the Newport Tower disappearances began to spread. The newspapers ran speculative headlines, mysterious vanishing at Newport Tower, and town haunted by missing friends. Tourists and thrill seekers flocked to the site, eager to glimpse the place where reality seemed to bend. Locals avoided it, warning that anyone who lingered too long might be drawn in by the tower's unseen forces. Children whispered of ghostly figures wandering the grounds, and hikers spoke of cold drafts that seemed to follow them without source. Some believed the tower had a consciousness, an entity that could manipulate space and time, pulling people from one reality into another. Others claimed that the vanished friends had become part of the tower, their spirits forever trapped within its stone walls, waiting silently for the next curious visitors. Theories multiplied from scientific to supernatural, but none could explain the raw terror, the sudden disappearance, and the absence of physical evidence. The tower, ancient and indifferent, had claimed its victims, and its legend grew with each retelling. Years later, paranormal investigators arrived, drawn by the tales of New Year's Eve disappearances. They set up cameras, motion sensors, and audio recorders, hoping to capture evidence of the supernatural. Strange phenomena were reported almost immediately. Lights flickered in ways that defied explanation. Cold spots appeared without source, and faint whispers were captured on audio recordings. One investigator described hearing footsteps echoing behind him, only to turn and find the hall empty. Cameras malfunctioned, memory cards erased themselves, and some even claimed to feel an invisible force rushing past their bodies, tugging at their clothing as though the tower itself were alive. Footage and audio clips circulated online, but skepticism remained high. Some dismissed the events as hoaxes or the result of natural phenomena, yet countless witnesses attested to the same chilling experiences. The Newport Tower, it seemed, had a will of its own, a silent hunger that preyed on the unsuspecting. And every year, on New Year's Eve, locals reported hearing laughter, cries, and whispers emanating from the tower, just as the friends had vanished decades ago.
In recent years, hikers and nighttime wanderers have reported strange occurrences near the tower. Some see fleeting shadows moving in ways impossible for humans. Others hear muffled voices calling their names, only to find no one is there. A jogger reported stumbling across a pair of footprints that appeared to float above the snow, never making contact with the ground. These modern sightings, combined with the enduring mystery, have cemented the tower's reputation as one of Rhode Island's most haunted locations. A group of friends visiting the tower in 2018 described an oppressive feeling, like invisible eyes watching them. When they tried to leave, they discovered that the path they had walked earlier now seemed unfamiliar, twisted and distorted, leading them back toward the tower despite their best efforts. They fled before midnight, terrified, vowing never to return. The tower seemed to consume not just the missing, but anyone daring to linger in its presence too long. Theories abound. Some scientists proposed natural explanations, sudden ice collapses, disorientation from fog and snow, or hypothermia causing hallucinations. Yet these theories could not explain the absence of footprints or physical evidence. Others turned to folklore and the paranormal, suggesting the tower might be a doorway between worlds, a conduit that opens on specific nights, perhaps only on New Year's Eve, when time itself is in flux. Some claimed the tower is a prison for ancient spirits, a place where the living risk being trapped alongside the dead. Psychics who visited the site reported sensing strong negative energies, oppressive feelings, and flashes of memory that did not belong to them. Visions of people screaming, lost in cold stone corridors, their faces twisted in fear. Every theory, scientific or supernatural, seemed to point to one undeniable truth. The Newport Tower had claimed more than legend. It had claimed lives, and it retained the memory of its victims in ways no one could comprehend. Every New Year's Eve, the Newport Tower draws a mixture of thrill seekers and locals wary of its presence. Even in modern times, the atmosphere remains tense. The wind whistles through cracks in the stone, carrying voices that might be human or might not. On some nights, snow falls in unnatural patterns, forming circles around the tower that vanish by morning. Visitors report feelings of being watched, sudden drops in temperature, and an overwhelming sense of dread. The memory of the friends who vanished decades ago lingers, woven into the fabric of the tower itself. Some brave souls set up midnight vigils, cameras rolling, flashlights trembling in the darkness. They wait, hoping to capture evidence, yet most leave shaken, convinced the tower has eyes that follow every movement, ears that hear every whispered thought. Stories are shared online and in local cafes, each retelling feeding the legend. And though decades have passed, the town knows one truth. New Year's Eve at the Newport Tower is not a night for celebration. It is a night for caution and for fear. What truly happened to Michael, Jenna, Kyle, Laura, and Sam that fateful New Year's Eve? Were they pulled into another dimension, claimed by an ancient malevolent force, or merely swallowed by the cold night and forgotten by time? No one knows, and yet the Newport Tower remains, silent and eternal, watching, waiting for the next curious souls to wander too close. If you ever find yourself near the tower as midnight approaches, be careful. The snow may appear undisturbed, the path familiar, but the Newport Tower does not forget. And sometimes, on the coldest nights, when the wind carries whispers across the snow, you might hear laughter, cries, or faint footsteps, just as those friends did decades ago. They're waiting, patient, eternal, and the tower is hungry. The Newport Tower does not forgive, it does not forget, and it certainly does not let go.